to listen to Sandra and Abby and see what he has to say in terms of any words of reassurance. Welcome, all of you. Let me start with Sandra, if I may. You run a business. You used to be in charge of economic development at Cornwall Council. What are people in Cornwall saying about the prospect of leaving the EU without a deal?
Well, Cornwall was a place that actually voted to leave in a majority, and Cornwall is somewhere that's had a lot of investment from Europe over many, many years. And I think that the biggest issues that the business community are saying right now is, well, what does it look like in April next year? There's a real lack of clarity as to what that landscape looks like. And I know in terms of the release about the impact of supermarket shelves and so on, you know, Cornwall's a place that when we had the beast from the east a few months ago, we had empty supermarket shelves. Will that happen again next year? So I think the biggest fear amongst business owners, and myself included, is actually there's a vacuum of information about what even the negotiations are looking like.
Yeah. What do you say to Sandra Rothwell about there being a vacuum on information and details?
Well, I think she's absolutely right. There's a vacuum of information about a no-deal situation. We know that there's a government minister working full-time on this. We know that every department is drawing up plans. We know that the Chancellor's providing money for it. But none of this is this isn't exposed. And I would have thought if I was negotiating in Brussels, I would say, well, look, this is what we're preparing to do if we can't reach a deal. And we want businesses and we want the public to understand that. So I think the government should be much more forceful about these preparations. Not that they're not going on, it's just we don't really know very much about them.
And the scenario of potentially a shortage of familiar foods that we're all used to buying on our supermarket shelves.
Well, you know, I actually think that is a nonsense. I think that is Project Fear number 3. But there's a decision that has to be made. Are we going to?
But why do you think that's nonsense? Because you said it would be nonsense that we'd have to pay billions to Brussels to leave. Well, we are. You said it would be nonsense that we'd have to be subject to the European Court of Justice in the transition period. Well, we're going to be subject to it.
Well, the point is nothing has been agreed at the moment. But you make the very fair point. If we don't, if we have a no-deal situation, we don't pay £39 billion. We make our own laws in our own country, judged by our own judges.
Sure.
No, and we can have our own immigration policy. That is a very big plus for not having a deal.
Sure, it doesn't mean. OK, you're answering a different way now. It doesn't mean there won't be a lack of stuff on the supermarket shelves. Abby, tell Peter Bone.
I'm sorry, that's not true. There won't be. And if you say,
how do you know?
If you say at the end...
No, sorry, how do you know?
Because that's not what is going to...
How do you know? Can you see into the future?
Yes, I can.
Oh, my goodness, this is going to be an extraordinary exclusive interview that a Conservative MP can see into the future.
I know. Best way to look into the future is what happened in the past. And if we remember what the Project Fear number 1 was, about how this would be a doomsday thing if we voted to cut... Now, let me finish. Okay. I know the BBC are in love with the EU, but let's just
Please, that is silly.
No, that's not... You know that's true. You cut me off every time I'm trying to answer your question. The truth of the matter is we will continue to trade with the EU because the EU sends £70 billion more goods to us each year than we do to them.
But I'm being much more specific. What I'm saying is you promised us, you said paying billions to the EU was Project Fear. And now I'm asking how you know there won't be empty supermarket shelves. And you've just told me extraordinarily that you can see into the future.
Well, I think if you look to the past, you can judge what will happen in the future. If you are telling me with such certainty that there aren't going to be these projects...
I'm simply asking questions. I'm not telling you anything.
And I'm trying to answer you before you cut me off each time.
Go ahead.
So I'm saying that the scenario of what you call a no-deal situation would be perfectly feasible, but we must make sure that that is announced and decided upon so that businesses can plan for it. So 298 days before we come out of the EU, we should be saying, have we got a deal, or actually, are we better off without a deal? And at the moment, I'm beginning to think we are probably better off.
I think the single market enables us to be in the customs union.
Well, we're leaving the single market, so let's not rerun that round. Do you agree with Peter Bone that we might be better off without a deal? What are you...
No, of course we're not going to be better off without a deal. We need a deal in place. I'll give you an example. If we do come out of the customs union, it is going to cause havoc in our industry, in the transport industry. I work as a courier company, for a courier company called Lynx, and a couple of weeks ago I did a job, and that job enabled me to make 4 border crossings to Germany, and there was no border controls. It enabled me to do my job in a very, very effective manner. Yeah.
So what's your concern then?
Well, my concern is that if we don't strike a deal as regards the customs union, it's going to cause havoc for us. One, the costs involved, the delays involved. My boss has just signed a contract with companies in Europe which will enable us to transport goods, and the terms of the contract are that it must arrive there in a certain time. Now, if...
I mean, these, sorry to interrupt, but these fears are real.
But do you do courier work with non-EU countries?
Yes, and I know what you're going to say.
And you don't have delays there, do you?
No, I know what you're going to say. You're going to give me examples of Switzerland and Norway, who are not in the customs union. But I've been speaking to drivers. I mean, I've done jobs going to Switzerland and Norway, and what tends to happen is the delays are enormous, at their border controls, and some instances you're there waiting 5 hours, before you're cleared to proceed with your journey and deliver those goods. Right? And
well, my experience when I used to manufacture and sell all over the world is whether I sold to the European Union or to non-EU countries, the freight company or the transport company got the goods there exactly the same time, and there was no problem at all. The vast majority of lorries that come into this country from non-EU countries are not checked. So I think this is...
Yeah, but can you guarantee that they won't be checked if there is no customs union deal?
Well, that's the point. Why would, if you are trading, if you don't have an agreement, let's assume you don't have an agreement, don't have a free trade agreement, and we're trading on World Trade Organization rules, then actually, because our regulations are aligned, there should be absolutely no more checks than there are now.
Yeah, but you can't guarantee that.
Well, that's what the rules say.
At this moment in time, what contingency plans have you made? Yeah, if there is no deal struck and Britain opens its door to let the trade come in, what reciprocal arrangements have you made with other countries in the EU that they will reciprocate this same agreement? I mean, I'm asking you about France here.
Yes, the World Trade Organization rules which govern trade between countries say that you must continue on the same basis. The idea that you're suddenly going to put delays in place is against the whole ethos of what they're doing at the moment. And we've seen this situation where Donald Trump has imposed tariffs on steel, and the EU, of course, is complaining madly about that. So they could then hardly go and do the same thing to us if everything at the moment is trading freely.
OK, I'm going to leave it there, but thank you so much, all of you. Thank you, Peter Bone, for talking to Abby Persad, a courier driver from Lynx Couriers, and to Sandra Rothwell, a Cornish business owner. Thank you very much for your time as well.
We will make America great again.